thank you all for being here I don't know what the weather might be like where you are, but summertime is always a busy time for people in Alaska or other places, wherever you might be viewing from. And I want to thank Jacqueline for hosting as well. Many of you I have met, some of you I have not met. One of you I tried to meet, just didn't work out timing wise. Matt, nice to see you there. Wish we'd met in person, but maybe next time you're in Ketchikan, which I will say I am phoning into you from the traditional lands of the Sanya-Kwan and the Tontaquan Tlingit people. And I feel very fortunate to share stewardship of this land with those people, the Tsimshian and the Haida, who also call this place home. Fishability is, the concept is only a couple of years old. The concept came to me during the idle summer of 2020 when I would normally be charter fishing, and I found myself a lot of time on my hands. And some of you may know about the concept as it is, and Jacqueline alluded to this. I'm looking to have a custom-built vessel that's universally accessible so that people with disabilities can take advantage of the ocean-going excursions that we have here in Ketchikan, sightseeing trips, day cruises, wildlife viewing, charter fishing trips, and so on. That was the original concept. And then when I entered the Spruce Route program for 2020, 2021, and explored the idea a little further, had some of my assumptions challenged, it became clear to me that there were offerings beyond just immediate cruise ship tourism opportunities, for example, that there's a real element of service available here for any people in Ketchikan or the greater Ketchikan area, and perhaps eventually wider Southeast Alaska, who don't have access to the ocean in the manner that those of us who are able-bodied or are without disabilities, because not all disabilities pertain to physical attributes, but not all people have access to such outings, whether it's a visit to a Forest Service cabin or beachcombing or foraging, or simply transportation between one island community and another. So I learned a great deal through Spruce Route. I was lucky to be one of the recipients of one of their awards. Was lucky to be able to join the Innovation Summit and then the Alaska Angels Conference. And so there's really been, for me, I've got a long history of working with people with disabilities. I've always enjoyed people in general. And I've been working on the water for about 10 years here, in Ketchikan now. So the business aspect of things is where I've had the steepest learning curve, and I'm still on that learning curve. And there's a mixed blessing right now for me and my business in that there is going to be a pretty significant gap between where I am today and trying to get this boat designed and built and paid for, and when I anticipate making my initial offerings as a business, which could, if things go very well, could be as early as the second half of 2023, but is more likely going to be near the beginning of 2024. And so in the relative period of dormancy I've had, which is sort of overlaid with a very busy charter season, I've had an opportunity to kind of reflect on some of the assumptions I've made about the business that I'm building, to talk with other people who are providing services similar to what it is that I hope to do and hope to offer. And one of the things that I would like to do with the time that I have with you today is take any feedback or questions or insights that you may have, whether it's by virtue of your personal experience, observations, or professional experience, organizations or individuals you might be aware of who might be able to speak to some of the services that I'm hoping to offer. I'd also like to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that I've encountered. Wonder if anybody might have insights as to how to overcome some of those, some of the newly recognized little roadblocks that I will have. I'm fortunate in that I am able-bodied, and so there are some things that I take for granted just in my day-to-day, just walking about town, being on the docks, working with boats, and so on. And that's part of what I hope to address with this business. I have, for example, just recently, I was watching people board. There are only a couple of excursions, ocean-going excursions in Ketchikan that offer any kind of universal accessibility. One of them, several of the Allen Marine vessels, and many of you may know that operation. Most of those vessels have accessibility, but they have special modifications they've had to do even on their ramps in order to board people to and from their vessels. And I am only beginning to uncover some of the new obstacles that I will encounter once I've am in operation, it's not simply going to be a matter of having an accessible vessel and loading people up into it. There's the question of whether they can get to the vessel or not. I don't know if you're all dealing with tides as steep as ours. We'll get up to a 24-foot swing in about a 6.5-hour period here. And there are times when the gangways that we have to and from the points of loading to and from a vessel are incredibly steep. So in trying to do my due diligence now in preparation for a future season of operation, I'm trying to uncover as many of the challenges that I hadn't even considered when I first conceived of this business. And so I don't know if any of you can speak to obstacles that you encounter or that you are aware of, but I'm all ears when it comes to learning about things that I might be overlooking. It's really easy to come at this concept from a perspective of solving the problem, whereas I fully recognize that I may not be recognizing all of the problems. I think I'm really only addressing one key piece of the puzzle, and I'm keen to discover what other steps that I can take to make to create as much access as possible. Now, I want to stress also that I have this tendency, or I've developed this tendency, I think, to fall into this little pit of being focused on mobility issues, because I think it's one of the most obvious and most immediately evident forms of disability that the boat I am looking to have built will solve. The boat that I'm building will solve for. But there is the notion of the mission behind Fishability is to make ocean-going excursions available to all people with disabilities and their travel companions. And it's easy for me to be so focused on, can we safely secure a wheelchair on the boat? How, second to that, if we've safely secured a wheelchair on the boat, how do I account for safety on the vessel if someone is, if we have issues on the water? Like I talked at great length with the executive director of Fishing Without Boundaries, which is an organization in Wisconsin that's been doing for 20 years what I'm trying to do now. They're doing on freshwater what I'm trying to do on salt. And she had great insights for me about issues of safety and comfort on the vessel. But again, she's dealing with very different bodies of water. Tidal swing isn't there. Ocean chop, ocean swells aren't there. So she had great insights for me, things like rubber mats on the boat, which will absorb some of the impact if there is any chop or rough water. But if I have wheelchairs locked in place and I have a vessel, if the vessel capsizes, I mean, heaven forbid,
Yeah.
how do I safely secure the individuals who might be, not all individuals who utilize a wheelchair are strapped into it, but some do, or some need to be, just in order to to improve their ability to breathe. So these are some of the
Huge issues, Jack.
I
Huge.
mean,
I'm going to stop you there. You threw
please.
a lot of questions out at our audience, and
Yeah.
I'm going to actually ask my good friend Kim Champney to maybe step forward. She's been involved in this area for so long. Kim, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but could you speak to some of the issues that Jack addressed?
Well, thanks, Jack. I'm curious if you have advisors or partners who are people with a variety of disabilities or family members of people with disabilities who like, not just somebody like that you maybe interview, but maybe someone who walks along the journey with you and advises or gives perspective into certain aspects.
Yes, that's a great question. And I'm happy to say that my answer is yes. In part, two organizations I can speak to. Well, one's a committee. It's called the Inclusion Committee. It's run by the Ketchikan Area Arts and Humanities Council, and their focus is on finding ways for people with any kind of, whether it's a learning disability, a physical disability, a cognitive disability, et cetera, to have access, equal access to a lot of the offerings and activities that are available here in Ketchikan, not just ocean-going excursions, but hikes, art gallery openings, community theater productions, and so on. And they are actually one of the first organizations that I spoke with before I'd even entered the Spruce Root competition, just when I was sort of testing the notion of the idea. The other is SAIL, Southeast Alaska Independent Living, who my first winter living in Ketchikan, I was the ORCA coordinator, outdoor recreation and community access. And so that's an organization that I was quick to reach out to once I was putting together my business plan, because I knew they'd have invaluable insights for me with respect to some of the questions that I'm trying to get answered now. So yes, I do. And thank you for checking in on that.
Yeah, that's great. My other thought is I do know of a group based in Kodiak that does quite a bit of like real adventure excursions with people with disabilities. And
Yeah.
I need to check in who the point of contact would be, but I know they've done, I believe they even might have a boat that they've utilized. And I don't know what level of accessibility, you know, sometimes it's people have kind of jerry-rigged things, but
Sure.
I
I'd like
could
to-
find out because that ocean piece is unique, right? To Alaska, probably.
Yeah, and for Southeast, it's such a critical part of life here that people just they don't even think about how easy it is. If a person calls me and says, "Hey, I'm going on a boat this afternoon. Do you want to join?" I don't have to think twice about going. I just think about whether I'm available. You know, but for a person with disabilities, there's all kinds of planning and problem solving that's involved in order to make that trip possible for them. So, do you know the name of that organization on Kodiak? Offhand?
I need to double check before I say it on
Yeah, that's
Facebook
fine.
into the world.
But yeah,
But let me check.
please feel free to forward it to me when you have it.
Right, and I had one more idea, and then I was going to stop talking, but I just lost it. So I'll stop
Okay.
talking, and I'll jump back in. I'll let somebody
Okay.
else share.
Thanks so much.
We're very lucky to have Matt Golden on. He was our last presenter and he's very graciously joined us here today. His experiences as an entrepreneur, and I'm wondering if he would have some advice to you about not trying to solve everything all at once and maybe starting a little bit smaller. So sorry, Matt, I'm going to just start naming people. There you go.
All good, my pleasure. So yeah, I did a podcast, I think it was last week. We put it on our Map Habit page, but yeah, I think the key is, for me at least, and I know this is not necessarily the rule of thumb, but you want to start small, have kind of a narrow focus, implement it, and get some testing and get some user feedback on that. And then as you kind of incorporate that back and iterate through the design, then is when, at least for us, we were able to, expand some of the feature sets, or we started in the Alzheimer's disease and related dementia space, but then we quickly realized that the intellectual and developmental disability community also have been using these visual supports and video modeling, and we were able to get into that space a lot quicker because we were very systematic about basically rolling something out narrow and small and iterating around that on the ADRD side. So those are just some of the things that we learned that helped us as we tried to kind of consume all the requests and information that everyone wanted, that are really great ideas. But when you're dealing with a small team, for us, it was easier to kind of be narrow and small and then expand.
Thanks, Matt. And I want to ask just briefly, when you said of the design, do you mean the design of the vessel itself, the design of the excursions offered, or the combination of the two?
Oh, I wasn't necessarily being specific. I was kind of more thinking of my experience, but I think having kind of the overall roadmap of those three areas is important, but I wouldn't try to kind of roll each of the three pieces out at once. I would choose kind of one, but then still plan for the other ones.
Okay, thank you.
That makes sense. Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much, Matt. And thank you for letting me put you on the spot. I am going to open this up. We have some very experienced people here. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question?
I'd love to ask Jack, how can we help you finance this company and make this a reality faster, since as you know, I'm on the funding side of things, and
Right. Yeah,
very excited to see you progress, but gosh, I want that boat to start.
Yes, I do too. And I appreciate the question and the support in that respect, because that, of course, is one of the big it's probably the biggest hump to get over just operationally, is just getting the boat paid for. Hi, Martina. It's been a little while. I'm really excited to say that I'm working with a new boat builder, new to this project. I had originally planned on working with a boat builder in Washington State, but a whole host of complications made that that relationship untenable. And it wound up being a mixed blessing, because I found a boat builder right here in Ketchikan. So not only will I be able to keep whatever financing I find for this vessel right here in the local economy, I get to support a family who I happen to be until recently only passingly familiar with, but it's a local family that I'm happy to do business with. And there's a real net benefit for me as well, in that if there is a question of design or an uncertainty about a door position or a window angle or anything like that, it's instead of a round trip flight to and from Washington State and a rental car and lodging, it's just a quick drive out to Ward Cove, 20 minutes away. So that's a real benefit for me. As for funding the vessel itself, the boat builder has expressed his flexibility, at least in terms of a payment schematic for getting off the ground. He's piecing together a design for me as we speak. He's had a busy season as well, and he's relocating his shop, and that's taken up a good deal of his time. But fortunately, it looks like he forecasts that he'll be able to build the boat in about 8 months' time once he has the materials, which is 10 months faster than the previous builder that I had been talking with. To your question, though, Melanie, how can you help me get it paid for? It looks like the way that this will be arranged with this builder we'll be dealing with individual segments of the vessel. First, the hull itself, then the outboard motors, and then I'm going to need a fair amount of equipment, both for fishing excursions and also safety, things like flares and fire extinguishers and so on, PFDs and the like. I'm talking to Spruce Root right now about a loan through their CDFI program, and that may cover the hull. That's what I'm hoping for if things go to plan. I've also got a fair portion of the Path to Prosperity Award program remaining, and I'll probably be applying that to some of the equipment that I'll be needing. I am also just beginning to explore what kind of partnership opportunities there might be with the cruise lines. And this has been sort of an about face for me. And in fact, it was a question that, Melanie, I don't recall if it was you who put the question to me at the Innovation Summit, but when I presented there, someone asked me about my interest in contracts with the cruise ships. And at the time, I had sort of a knee-jerk response against that notion that was built partly out of conversations I've had with other small single boat or two boat operators that I know here in Ketchikan, who have either decided to go ultimately independent and not contract with the cruise ship, or who came into ownership of businesses that already had existing contracts. And I was still kind of new. I'm still new to this whole thing. But I think a lack of knowledge on my part made that whole concept pretty scary. And I've since had what to date have been really informal conversations with both Royal Caribbean and Carnival. And I've begun to understand that there are more tenable approaches than I had originally considered. And those are relationships I'm looking to build on. I'll be joining the ATIA conference in Sitka this October. And by then, hopefully, I assume I'll have really clear, hard numbers about the boat build itself. But if there's an opportunity for partnership with a cruise line who I might say contract exclusively with for some period of time, that might be a way for me to help get the boat at least paid for in part. That is something that I'm still exploring. Beyond that, though, I'm always looking for openings and opportunities. WeFund is something that I'm still thinking about. It's been hard for me to pursue those avenues aggressively, though, while I've been waiting for the numbers to become hard and fast as I get this design in place with this new boat builder. So that's been the delay there for me.
I think you've uniquely kind of set forward a challenge that's just different from many of the entrepreneurs that we've worked with here, certainly many who I've seen go through the Angel Conference, because you're building a a boat, which is just different from building software and other things. So I think it's a unique challenge and yet so important. And I'm sure that once you get somebody like Carnival or somebody else on, there might be other investors who, once they see that, might have a reason to talk with you. So super excited about that. Are there any other questions about accessibility or anything? We have a lot of knowledge on this call. Is there anybody else that would like to ask a question about that?
I saw Kim put a finger down.
Yeah,
Yes.
I just had another idea. You might check into Rotary. They like to build stuff, especially if they can put the rotary wheel on the side.
Yeah.
There are some district level grants for Rotary that are bigger, and I think your social impact side of it would be appealing. And it's business, it's economic development. So
That's a great idea. Thank you. That actually had not been on my list, so that's excellent, Kim. Thanks so much.
This is just awesome, Kim. This is exactly why we do these things. Thank you so much. It was just like last time with Map Habit. I left that program basically in tears because there was a woman who came on and said that she'd say that, Map Habit was going to give her a path forward for her daughter. So super exciting. This is why we do this. Thank you, Kim. And Cindy's putting in some information about Challenge Alaska. Let's see. Challenge Alaska is a great organization to chat with. The organization organizes adventures in and off the water for its beneficiaries, and they might be able to identify barriers that prevent others from accessing fish.
Thank you, Cindy. That's excellent.
Great idea.
Love it.
All right. Well, we are about 5 minutes from the end of our time together. Jack, what's one thing that you can tell us that's been inspirational about your journey and what this group can do to continue to support you? Because once you're in, you're never out. So
yeah. I think the thing that inspires me most is the near constant affirmation I get, not for what I'm doing, but for the need for what I'm doing. And it's incredibly encouraging, of course, but it's also really revealing that anytime I describe this concept to people, they immediately see the need for it and the value of it. And that's been reflected even in the conversations that I've had with the shore excursion managers from Carnival and Royal Caribbean, who encounter clients through their business every day who are looking for outings here in Ketchikan that they want to be accessible. So it's great to know that I'm working towards something. I think a lot of businesses, when they're in development, are faced with the question as to whether or not the product or service that they're bringing to market will be viewed as having value. And it's really nice to know that I am addressing a need that other people recognize. And so even when I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm lost, or I'm in over my head, I remember that I'm working towards something that is valuable and important. And that keeps me going. One thing that I will always entertain or accept are challenges to assumptions that I'm making. I spoke with my current employer, who's been my boss for 7 years. He's a mover and shaker here in Ketchikan. He's built multiple businesses over the years. You may or may not know Chuck Slagle, but Chuck was quick to challenge some of my basest assumptions about how big he felt like I was swinging for the fences for this particular vessel. He thought maybe you could start with something smaller and build toward what you want. And the conversation that followed that challenge was really instructional for me. So if there's any point where you think that I'm missing something or that I'm overshooting on something, I want to know about it. I don't want. It's great to hear, yeah, Jack, what you're doing is important, but I don't need people to think that everything I'm doing is working or is right. If there's something that if there's a mark that I'm missing or an assumption that I'm making that doesn't quite click, I want to hear about it. I want to know. It's the only way I'll learn and grow.
Thank you all so much for coming today, and I wish you all well. And thank you again to Jack. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you all for your time.